Okay, Broadband Training Ltd. Just a little bit of history. SCTE has been doing training for quite some time. The first manuals, as we see there, were introduced quite some years ago. Very well written. They were generated by Dan Smart, who has now retired from the committee, and they were extremely good. But, as I'm saying there, amazing change has happened. We all know that. We've all gone... When the original manuals were written, there was an awful lot of analogue. Now there is very little analogue, so that's one aspect. But also the way networks are constructed, the use of fibre, what's happening in the home, all of these are big changes. And if you'll pardon the pun, we have to stay at the cutting edge in our manuals and in our work. So at the end of 2012, the committee talked about what we could do, how we could update the courses, and I was in the wrong place at the right time. And so I was pleased to take on the challenge. Roger said, can you devote 2 days a week for a while to this? What he didn't tell me was it was 2 24-hour days a week. And Roger, I know Roger works 25 hours, but I can only manage 24. So I accepted the task, and I was glad to accept the task because I think it's incredibly important to train people, to bring new topics to people, and particularly I like to encourage young people to do well in this industry. It's an industry I've been in all my working life. I've enjoyed it. It's been a challenge, and I wanted to encourage people to be involved and to learn. So, why did we form Broadband Training? I mean, we've got the SCTE. What's wrong with the SCTE? Well, there's nothing wrong with the SCTE at all. But as I'm saying there, the main reason is accreditation. We have to be seen in broadband training. We plan to do training, and we plan to train trainers. We're not setting up as a training company wanting thousands of trainers. We want to just spread the word. So a lot of the basis is, let's have a few trainers who can train the trainers, so they can go to companies like Virgin Media and other broadband companies and train the trainers that are in these companies with our manuals and so on, and bring that forward. But if we're going to give certificates out, the training company does not want to be the company that is issuing the certificates. The training company should be separate from that. And so SCTE issues the actual certificates, and that gives the credibility that's needed. So we are then in an accredited situation. So it might seem strange to start up a new company with all the costs and all the problems involved, but that's what we did. And that has got round the problem of accreditation. Now, I won't read this out. We did have to do a tremendous amount of rewriting, far more than we expected at the beginning. The task is pretty much finished now. We've got two manuals that are in print, and they're not trivial. This first one runs to 125 pages. That one runs to over 100 pages. It's been like writing, and we have 2 more, which are just going into print now. It has been like writing 4 textbooks. And I must pay tribute to Beverly, who's not here, who's done the checking and put all our English right, and put in the right full stops and commas, and driven us all silly, but it had to be done. We had to get these things right. And that's been an aim, that we have a very high standard, and that we produced some really good manuals. And tribute to the people who did most of the writing. I was just really there, kicking them, egging them on, reading what they'd done, and so on. And the real work was done by Peter Barnett, who some of you may not know, a very good guy involved in Ofcom, and we did a lot of work for the CAI. I don't need to introduce Mike Thornton, you'll see him in a minute, and I think you probably all know David Woolard, but they did a great job in the writing and did it pretty quickly as well. But we didn't just sort of rush out and rewrite. One of the main things that Mike and I did was visit quite a few companies, including Virgin Media. We got a lot of advice, a lot of help, thanks to many people. I won't name names, but there are a lot of people who gave us a lot of input, a lot of ideas, and said what was wanted by the industry, because it's no use producing training manuals if they're not relevant. We had to produce manuals that were relevant, and we did spend a lot of time trekking around, visiting Virgin Media in different parts of the country and talking to lots of people. And when we'd prepared the outlines, we then resubmitted those, and some of the students, in fact, in Virgin Media were very helpful, one or two of them here today, in looking through them and saying, yes, this is okay, this is not okay. So a lot of consultation, and in the end, I think we've produced something which is pretty good. Online exams. We think this is very important, particularly as we're selling the courses overseas, and the problem of marking exams is difficult. It means you have to send somebody out, maybe supervise the exams. So we decided to get around that by doing online exams. An initiative, as I say, has been started some years before I got involved, and quite frankly it had bogged down for many reasons. One was not enough effort was there. The other one was that the software that was chosen was, well, horrendous is the only word. I'm not good with software. I can break any software, and I broke this many times. So eventually, after struggling, we looked around, we found some new software which was actually much cheaper and much better than the original, and much easier to use. And I spent many happy hours writing questions and revising the old questions and inventing, because it is a multi-choice question, I had to invent a lot of wrong answers as well, which is a lot harder than it looks, because they've got to be kind of believable, and so you have to be very careful. You get to a point when you're writing these answers where you say, for example, if a technician goes into a house and he's offered a cup of coffee, what should he do, and things like that. I mean, these are the simple ones in the installer side. And you get to a point where you say, oh, say to the householder, I'm sick of the sight of bloody coffee. You know, and you want to put that in the answer to the question. So then you have to go away and do something else for a while and settle down. But it was a big job. It's all done now. It's all in place. And hopefully it will be tried in real anger. There are about 5 times the number of questions that anyone will get. So if we have 50 questions in the exam, there would be 250 actual questions. They're randomised. They're randomised not only in what you get, but also in what order they're put in. So the chances of the guy sitting taking an exam next to his friend and looking over, no, he can't copy from him. He's got a different set of questions with you know, different setup. So that was important, particularly for our overseas market, and a lot of effort went into that. So one of the things that emerged was the need to train people who were not in the mainstream of the business, people in call centres, people in management, people in all kinds of areas. And we came up, Mike Thornton and I came up with the idea of a course, largely as a result of talking to Virgin Media, which we call Broadband for Dummies, as it says. It's not a reflection on Virgin Media. Unfortunately, this name seems to have stuck a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have even mentioned it today. But the correct name is Broadband and Other Networks. And we think that this is something which will be very valuable because as engineers, we are in the habit of waving acronyms around and showing off a little bit about our technical knowledge. But Mike Thornton wrote this course, and I think it's best to hand over to Mike, let him tell you about it. Thank you.